Good day and welcome to Let's Talk Tech on the Tradepass podcast. This is me, Jane. I have a super cool, super special, super amazing guest who's joining us. This is Angela Mwirigi, and I'm going to say, Habari Aliu.
Salama sana. How are you doing, Jane?
I'm doing fabulous, and seeing your bright and happy smile and your really cool hair, I'm loving it.
Oh, thank you. That's very sweet.
Thank you so much for joining us. You're going to be part of WFIS Kenya, and I am very excited about it because we are going to be in Kenya, and it's going to be on the 24th and 25th of May, 2023 World Financial Innovation Series. So it makes me super excited to have you as my guest on episode number 7. And what makes it really cool is you are the Director of Digital Financial Services at the KCB Bank Group. Before we go across and start this podcast, what's Kenya like? What's the weather like? What's the feeling like? And what's that big smile all about?
Okay, so Kenya is lovely, warm, a bit chilly sometimes, especially in the early mornings, but now it's in the afternoon. So it's all nice and cool and a bit warm. So yeah, I think you'll enjoy yourself in May. Although I cannot promise that the weather will last until May.
Well, I'm really hoping that May is going to be pretty gorgeous as well. But before we kickstart all of this, WFIS series is coming to Kenya, like I said, 24th and 25th May 2023. How excited are you to be part of this entire absolutely fantastic coming together of really cool minds from the financial and the fintech world in your country?
I think that's going to be a fantastic opportunity for everyone. I really do hope everyone is able to attend, as many people as can attend, should attend, because there is nothing better than knowledge. You should learn, you should come, talk to other people, collaborate, meet, network, and get to know about what the new tech, how people are actually applying new tech. The beauty of actually is not so much whether or not you know about the tech, it's how to apply the tech. That's a very cool opportunity when such conferences are put together.
That's amazing. Well, if you had to describe your job as the Director of Digital Financial Services at the KCB Bank, what would you describe it? How cool is it? How difficult is it? How challenging is it?
Okay. So my role is really to define the digital strategy for the bank, for the group. We're actually in about 8 countries in sub-Saharan Africa, and we run across about 350 million population as a whole. And so my role is to figure out the digital strategy that we're going to execute across the group, and then drive that innovation of financial services anchored on our brand values, of course, across the entire organization. So, given the nature of banking industry, that's a long road to hoe. Yeah, it's fascinating. It's very interesting.
That's absolutely amazing. When somebody uses the words fascinating and interesting for their job, I know they bring a lot of happiness, energy, life, and vision and focus to the company as well. Tell us a little bit about your professional background. What really fueled you to start in digital financial services? It's quite niche. So what brought you to KCB Bank? It's a top 20 tier 1 bank in Africa and market cap and assets, which are quite big US dollars in terms of just American dollars, $1.3 billion and $10 billion respectively, your market cap and assets. So what brings you here and what brought you to bring all your energy?
Well, actually, I joined the bank about 12 years ago, and I joined it to be its marketing director, marketing and communications director. So it became pretty obvious that the banking industry needed to realign itself. And in the last decade, so much has changed. If you think about every industry that's gotten disrupted, it would be foolish for the financial industry to think everything was going to remain the way it has been for the last 400 years or so. So I looked at it and I said to myself, if I want to scale up quickly, the way we offer services to our customers, it's not enough to just communicate and tell them great things about the organization you're in. If you're seeing that there is a lot more you can do so that you can transform people's lives, bring dignity into some of the services that they want to access, because we kind of had a traditional banking industry in this part of the world. So I really wanted to be part of that revolution as we ran into it, headlong. Let's figure out how we make it a lot more exciting for customers to work with us. And Africa is young. I mean, the average age is 20 years old. You cannot talk to them about walking into branches. You have to change it. So I decided this is the future. This is the way to create a more exciting future for myself, for this part of the world, for my people. Yeah, so let me give it my best shot.
That's fantastic. You said the average age of the African is 20, so it's a super young population. And the pandemic, add to that, definitely made everybody become really fast adopters of the digital capabilities, right? Now, how did it pan
Yeah.
out for you guys at KCB? Did you add a massive number of young, newly digital active customers after you went digital? How did you captivate your 20-year-old average African young male and female?
Actually, yeah. What happened was that the young ones were already on board and really wanted the digital services. In fact, they used to say, because we are 126 years old, they used to call this bank Old Man Young, because they would say that, we'd run a really cool, very nice social media campaigns and digital campaigns, and we really appealed to the youth. But now what changed, what the pandemic did, is that it forced people who are over 35, 45 to actually look at it and say, because you would walk into outlets and they would actually have signs saying no cash allowed. So you had to figure out, how do I start to access cashless formats and options. So what that did is that it grew. I mean, I think we grew 6x in terms of our transactions. The base grew 10x, that was active every month, because there was no choice but for people to change their behavior, because all the merchants, the market, there was such a push. And we haven't looked back, because there was quite a number of interventions even the central bank put in to force the price down so that it became very accessible to everyone. So what's happened is that now we can't look back. We're just moving forward with going cashless.
That's fantastic. Well, that's the only way to move, and that is to move forward. But you have such a really interesting way of developing the digital business and all the innovations, leveraging a very strong regional presence to build network systems, customer relationships, private and public, driving, portfolio top line growth, creating new revenue markets. So I really want to know from you, what is the most innovative financial trend of 2023, according to you?
Actually, the thing with financial trends is that it cannot go into one financial year. So in the last couple of years, what we've been focused on is we were doing micro lending. Micro lending is very critical, because that's when I say that we wanted to give dignity to our people. It's that when you're going to apply for a bank loan, you need to have collateral, and that can be very painful for a lot of people. If you don't have security, you're not coming from a family with a lot of wealth in the background, then you have nothing to use as security, or you have to then go beg family and friends and so on, or you need to have a lot of capital to be able to borrow. So micro lending was where we did a lot of our focus to drive a lot of that. We do about now over $2 billion in lending every year, and more than that, more than even the quantum of how much we lend, is that we go down all the way to 50 cents to the dollar, what we will lend to someone, which means they can use it to get on a bus, go look for a job, go work at a construction site, pay back the loan at the end of the day with no interest, and do that the next day until they kind of get themselves together again. So our interest really was figure out, how do we drive micro lending. Then we started saying, okay, now we need to start expanding payments. How do we create open ecosystems? How do we create open banking in this part of the world, even though we don't have some of the rules that they have in Europe, like the PSD2 rule that forced banks to cooperate? So how do we drive that in this part of the world? How do we build API platforms that can allow people to integrate and make payments, build mini programs, drive e-commerce effectively, so that people can start to use their services effectively? Build escrow services, so you can trust that, because most people assume that you use online services mainly to buy food, but people also want to start little businesses on Facebook, on WhatsApp, on Instagram, and you need to be able to enable them as banks to do that, which, by the way, I assure you, was quite a leap for our institutions, because this is not traditionally areas we thought of going into. There is, of course, the application of AI. How do we build in digital humans into our processes so we can use them for credit collections? Because when you're doing micro lending, you can call every customer. The phone call itself is worth more than the principal you've lent. So you need to figure out ways and means of reaching those customers. How do you drive customer engagement with them? And since you're talking about quantums of millions, billions of transactions, you need to figure out what are some of the technologies available today that can actually help you to scale up rapidly, how you engage your customers, how you speak to them, and improve the experience for them with you, without trying to balloon your workforce into an unmanageable level. So yeah, it's been an interesting road. So I would say the trends, that's where they lie. how do you leverage technology like AI? How do you leverage open banking? How do you use APIs to transform the experience for the customer? Those are the things we are really focused on.
Fantastic. I mean, that brings me to the question of what everybody is talking about: ChatGPT, AI, and the use of ML, Power BI in delivering
Mm.
fantastic digital banking services. 2023, what's the one technology that you will pick, and how relevant and practical is it to use it in the banking space?
Oh, it's absolutely critical. Actually, I feel like we have taken rather long to execute it and to kick it off effectively. I mean, Chat GPT. I know everyone is going all in the sci-fi world and thinking about your your what do they call the guy with the metal guy who wants Terminator? That's it. But when I think about how we can utilize AI, I think about it from how do we make it possible for service levels for our customers, right, to be at 100%. So when you're thinking about the masses, the digital, how do I ensure that fast contact response is at 100%? How do I ensure that employees who are all over the group, which is spread in such a huge territory, when you think about those 8 countries, because we come all the way from South Sudan down to the DR Congo. And when you're talking about the Congo, I assure you, I want you to look at the map of Africa, and you'll see we are talking about the entire central block of the continent. It's a huge geographic space. So the only way we're going to be able to improve digital infrastructure and reach is by leveraging technology. Now, what I'm looking for is, of course, not all geographies are at the same level. Not all geographies have national ID systems, for instance, centralized identification systems by the government. Not everywhere do you have credit reference bureaus that are robust and widely used by the entire industry. So there is, mix and match it up. So you figure out, how do I apply USSD? Because in some places that's what is strongest and they cannot do apps. So, it makes an interesting mixed bag of how do you approach the execution of technology in different parts of this region.
Fantastic. The execution of technology and the execution of strategies. Now, that is what I'm sure you
Mm.
are batting it out of the park. Now, the KCB group that you work for, I was just reading about you guys. You guys are 124 years old. You have 354 branches with the HQ in Nairobi, which is where you sit, and subsidiaries in Kenya, in Rwanda, in Southern Sudan, in Tanzania, in Uganda, in Burundi. Now, when there's so many places, and you asked me to look at the map of Africa, which is wonderful, by the way, because I was also born in Africa. My parents were there, so I've seen it. But when you have to
Mm.
strategize and you have to
Mm.
innovate a digital banking strategy for the entire country, spanning across so many, entire continent, spanning across so many countries, how do you do it? How do you come up with one unifying digital strategy?
Actually, what I have been convincing my teammates, and the reason I was saying look at the map is to see the scale of that size. So you cannot force everybody into the same basket. And my approach is, you figure out one overarching audacious goal, and you say, this is where we want to go, right? This is how we want to change the people in our lives. These are the millions of customers we want to touch. This is the number we want to get to. Now, based on where your country's infrastructure, digital infrastructure is at, then you can execute the following. So these are all the options available to you. These are the platforms available to you. This is the standard that it comes with. If you want to do any customizations, because the more customization you do, the more expensive it is to execute. But more than that is that you have to consider some of these territories, like when you count countries like the size of Burundi, right, or Rwanda, which is quite technologically savvy for the size of country it is. You think about, how do you effectively roll out in each market based on the level of readiness they have, as well as the infrastructure available to you. So when you think about a country the size of Congo, it's in 3 time zones. It's got mountains and deserts and hills all in one territory. If you're thinking about Ethiopia, you have the same problem of 100 million people all in one country, and you're thinking about how do I scale across each of them, and how do I even get. So for them, actually, they have been waiting for you to come in with your technology, because they have been flying paper money across the country and coins. think about the logistical nightmare that is using paper money in some of these countries. So they're actually very eager. You write one overarching strategy. Every time you buy a platform, you buy it for the whole region, and you think about how do I get partners, vendors, how do I talk to the regulator so that they can support me? How do I align with them on data management, data compliance? I want to do hybrids. I want to put the application in the cloud, but I'll keep your data in country. Can I just set up a data center and use that and leverage that to drive a brighter future? So these are the give and take you have to do together with your team to figure out how to move forward.
Well, I like it. You said team, and that brings me to a question. It's so important that you drive a team together. And when you're driving a large team where everybody has to look at the same vision, how do you do that? As a leader, what is the one tip that you would give other leaders, especially in the banking and financial space, to keep every young person motivated? Because I'm sure your team is young and vivacious and vibrant and looking at a mentor like you.
Yeah, I think the critical thing is that you must allow them to be themselves. You have to allow them to be free, to talk and to be bold and to stand up. I keep telling people you cannot innovate if you're not bold. You cannot you cannot be someone who keeps quiet and sits in your corner with your ideas. If you have a better way to do it, no one is gonna mock you. Just get up and say it. And even if it was a dumb idea, we will not laugh at you. Okay, we might laugh, but we will not hold it against you. And more importantly, really, is to give people an environment where they feel like they're at home. I keep telling them, you have to know your colleagues, one, at a personal level. Then number two, you have to spend a lot of time. That's why I said that we operate within our brand values. Our we just changed our purpose now to be really people focused. So it's for people for better. And the reason it's for people for better, it's not just making it better for our stakeholders externally, but also internally for our people and with the environments within which they work. So my motto always is treat people the way you would like them to treat you. Give them their respect, their dignity. They're adults. They have families. You need to come at them with the right attitude, and they will give you the same love back. So it's just a question of how you relate with others. So I try to keep it a happy, easy environment all the time. But you must deliver. Otherwise, happy Angela goes away and all you have is angry Angela, and that's never any fun. So yeah, I think that's the way to work with a broad team of people. They must respect each other and respect the deadlines that they set for themselves.
Fantastic. I mean, I really like that, you have brought together your team with the right sort of discipline, but at the same time, there's a lot of fun. Now, when it comes to innovations, whether it is you or anybody in the team, because you said anyone can speak an idea, what has been the latest KCB banking product or experience that you're super proud of and that, you thought really worked well for you guys and for your customers, for people all across the board?
Okay, so I mean, we've been spectacular at consumer lending, but what I'm very excited about the future we are building is around small business owners. I keep saying that in this part of the world, if we don't start to grow small businesses, you cannot grow the GDP. If you grow the GDP, then you can remove unemployment as a huge barrier to success for people. So what I'm very excited about is that we are beginning to crack and understand how to do small business loans digitally. Most people have always found it very difficult to sell to provide credit to small business owners, and usually small business owners don't have any collateral or security. So what I'm enjoying right now is that we are really willing to jump off that bridge. The beauty of it is we're also jumping off with the government of Kenya. Especially in the Kenyan market, the government of Kenya has set up a couple of initiatives to try and do credit repair frameworks, because part of the implications of the pandemic, of course, is not just that more people were using digital, but you who was doing digital lending experienced some challenges because a lot of people lost their livelihoods or their livelihoods really shrunk. So their ability to repay their debts became a bit challenging. So what we experienced was a lot of non-performing loans in that space, but some of it has we tried to recover. But the government has actually stepped up to help build credit repair frameworks across the industry, across the banking industry. So, for instance, there's a moratorium of you can get 50% off your outstanding debt if you pay it within 6 months by June of this year. We also have the Hustler Fund. The Hustler Fund, its purpose is to lend people who we were not willing to have in the formal credit market again, because that's how banks are. If you don't pay us, we never lend you again. but the government is willing to lend them again. So if they are willing to lend them again and they are redeemable, we will accept them back in the formal credit market. So I'm excited that we are trying to pull up the bottom of the pyramid, and that we are trying to change, especially from a business standpoint. Individual lending can lead to more consumerism, but if you're trying to grow businesses, then you're trying to grow a brighter future for your people.
Fantastic. It's not just one customer, but small businesses and the bottom of the pyramid. I really like the way that you're approaching this because, I also heard that, the government is hugely in support. Kenya Vision 2030 is on. And we've been continuously speaking to a lot of your fraternity in Kenya who've been telling me that it is the Silicon Savannah, it's the Silicon Valley of Africa. So tell us, in terms of the government, in terms of the young population, in terms of the businesses, how exactly do you think the next 10 years till 2030, because Kenya Vision 2030, how is it going to hugely progress for your country?
Well, I think the first step towards that bright future is the execution of the digital infrastructure policy that the government has written up. So we've been spending some time with the ICT ministry to try and understand what kind of support they would need from an institution like ours to execute effectively. So you're talking about, they want to lay down 100,000 kilometers of fiber cable. They want to do last mile reach, maybe leveraging the electricity distribution companies to deliver last mile, which means there's lots of business owners that can come in and get that business from the ministry, from the government, and we can support the funding mobilization costs for them. There is Wi-Fi hotspots that the government wants to support so that people can be able to digitally access government services. There is the digitization of government services so that the government can actually provide end-to-end digital. I always tell people, it's not digital. If I press the button for the coffee, then you have to go at the back, make the coffee, and then stick it through the slot. That's not digitizing the experience. So how do we make sure that end to end, and there are no manual processes in between, to ensure that the citizens can get that the correct experience and the right support and the right reach. And you're talking about the smallest village, social programs can reach there. Old people don't have to get up from their homes, dress up to go to the bank. They can just get the money on their phone or on their cards or whatever format that we provide them. That's one. I mean, there is policy that is being put in place by the regulator to enable, such as the CBDC that Kenya wants to start trying out. We want to do universal payments as well, so that we can unify our approach to sort of what you see in South Asia, especially Southeast Asia, in all the way from Singapore, China. You see a lot of that payments, especially, beautifully done, and I'm hoping that we can get to that level of execution in this part of the world as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of interventions in the government plan. And now what we need to see is what can the private public, the PPPs, the public private partnerships do to bring a lot of that vision to life in the shortest time frame possible and in the most efficient manner that it can be done. Like when we did the Hustler Fund, the personal financial loan product, it was a collaboration between the banks, the government with the funding, the banks to administrate, and the telcos to provide the channels. And so it worked beautifully. Smooth as a duck. 20 million Kenyans have joined in 1 month, and they were able to access the credit line. So that's what we want to see going forward. That do we build the partnerships and collaborations that enable us to deliver those services as effectively as possible?
Fantastic. PPP, public-private partnership. You said 20 million Kenyans, got on something that the government put out there. But I really like the fact that there is so much of an involvement from your side. And I think every country grows when there is a proper PPP in place. It's all about partnerships and collaborations. But that brings me almost to the end of the podcast, because we're talking about partnerships and collaborations and the most brilliant minds like you, from the fintech and financial space coming together at WFIS Kenya, which is World Financial Innovation Series, 24th and 25th of May 2023 at KICC, Nairobi, Kenya. So looking forward to it. What are you looking forward to it most? Because you're going to meet your counterparts, you're going to meet collaborators, you're going to meet possible partnerships, the people that you can make partnerships with. What are you most looking forward to?
Actually, the reason I'm looking forward to this the most is I'm looking forward to meeting my colleagues, maybe getting them, once you get to know people at a personal level, a lot of times you find that getting the commercial part of it done becomes a lot easier. So I know I want them to believe that we can make strong partnerships together. So the more time I spend with them, the more opportunities I get to network with them, to sit with them, for them to hear us speaking, for me to hear what they have in mind, where the opportunities are that we can collaborate. Then yes, that's actually going to be the most exciting and most useful outtake for me, for sure.
Fantastic. Well, I'm sure personal connections and networking and a lot of fun is going to be had at the WFI series. But before I let you go, two questions that I'm going to end this podcast with. Number one thing about Kenya that everybody has to experience in 2023, anybody who's visiting, not just for WFIS in May, that's one.
Mm.
Another thing is because you are such a zealous and a happy and an inspirational person, what is the motto that you live life by, that you use at work, at life, and everywhere you go, like the passion that you live by?
Yeah, I think my passion is to keep learning. I think that if you can choose to make a difference in this world so that your life meant something, then that was a useful life you led. So I'm curious. I want to learn. I want to experience more things. I try to figure out how to bring those things to life, how to change the lives of the people around me. So I think that's the motto by which I live, and that I always encourage guys to live by, so that they can take joy from life. So you don't get bogged down by the things that come your way, the challenges that you meet. The only way for you to enjoy them is to take those challenges as opportunities to better yourself, to grow yourself, to learn new ways of doing things, to figure things out. It makes it an interesting way to live. And then why people should come to Kenya? Because it is a wonderful adventure. Not only will they learn so much, not only can they go on the safaris, which is to be expected, of course, because we have the hot air balloons, the Mara. Actually, May is a good time to come. I believe that's when it's almost the time for the wildebeest crossing. Yes. Oh, is that in October? Yes. Either way, there's still a lot of wildlife. I took some people the other day and they saw some two lionesses fighting a buffalo right at the gate at the Nairobi National Park. And this is a park that is right next to the city. Then, of course, we have amazing beaches. And yeah, there's so much culture. I mean, we have 42 tribes crammed together. Okay, 44 or 45. Oh, the number keeps changing. And crammed in in the country of Kenya. So it makes so much cultural diversity, and so many different things to experience. And we have a fantastic nightlife. So yeah, I really hope everyone comes and has a great time.
Well, wildlife, nightlife, and financial innovation all coming together in Kenya in May. I'm so looking forward to meeting you, Angela, because you're such a bold and bright and happy spark, and that's the sort of energy that you bring to work, and you've brought to this podcast as well. I've had so much of fun, but I just want you to leave us one last bit. Because you're from the banking and financial space, if you had to do a shout out to a whole bunch of our media partners, some very cool ones who've actually started working with us, and anybody who's watching this podcast, what makes Kenya number one in terms of financial innovation at this point in time, and why is Kenya the place in the country to be at?
I think Kenya is a place to be at because our people are so willing to adopt and try new technologies. So if you want a place which is a melting pot of people from all over the world and then from all over the place in Africa, and you want to figure out what is it that will work, then this is the place. Because I believe firmly that these technologies have the potential to completely revolutionize our way of life. So I'm looking forward to what we'll be able to do, because to me, every year is a huge leap forward on how we are able to transform the way we live. So yeah, I think they should come because it's like a great opportunity to meet the kind of people who you can learn from and then learn with what you can do. Because application of technology is what is important, not just having it. It's the application of it that truly matters.
Well, application, learning, unlearning, relearning, and moving forward, leaping forward with every single year. Look forward to seeing you at WFI's Kenya 24th and 25th May 2023. I'm going to say goodbye to you, and I'm going to do it the way that you do it. I wrote it somewhere, but maybe you'll have to teach me. What is it?
Kwaheri ya kuonana. Oh, I
Kwaheri.
added more words. Kwaheri, yes.
I'm just going to say
Kwaheri is goodbye.
Kwaheri. All right.
Yes, because ya
Kwaheri.
kuonana means see you soon.
Oh, kwaheri konana.
Yes.
Got that right?
See?
Kwaheri
Simple.
konana.
Yes. Yes.
Kwaheri konana. Thank you very much.
Mm.
Well, lots more on the other side. That was episode 7. A big goodbye from Angela. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.